Cleo.
This is Cleo with CleoYogaFinance.com, and welcome back for another episode of Financially Free with Cleo, a show where we shift mindsets with real and raw money conversations with everyday people, empowering you to take action, appreciate the journey, and live the lifestyle you desire, financially, mentally, and physically. Today's episode will be a solo episode with me, myself, and I, as your podcast host, financial educator, yoga instructor, and transformational speaker. I'm going to be talking about debt and how to pay off debt faster so you can really enjoy the things you really want to do. Sometimes debt is a barrier for us to have that financial freedom to do more of the things that we actually enjoy. So if you're someone who is comfortable with your debt and don't really care how long it takes to pay off your debt, this episode may not be for you. But for those of you who have debt and really want to find ways to pay it off faster so you can have more freedom with your money, this episode is for you. Now, if you have a home or commercial property that's financed, that may take you a lot longer to pay off. Maybe. So for those of you that has that other type of debt, like car loans, payday loans, title loans, credit cards, medical debt, student loans, IRS debt, child support debt, you want to make sure you are finding ways to pay it off as quickly as possible so that you can have the freedom to do more with your money. Just think about this. Every time you get paid, right? Think about all the things that you're paying for, all the debt payments. Just think about how it would feel if you could get paid and not have to pay on any debt. Just think about how it would feel to not look at that total debt number. It can be overwhelming when you add up all your debts and you see the total number. Just looking at that number can make you feel exhausted, stressed, and just like, you know what, I'm not even going to try to pay this off because just mentally, me seeing the number makes me feel like I can't do it. But we've all been there. I've been there to the point where I didn't even try to pay stuff off because I'm like, you know what, I'll never get to it. I'll never get there. I'll never make enough money. I'll never have enough skills to really pay this off. But a lot of times it's our mindset that really holds us back. So if you have goals that you want to reach, things that you want to do, lifestyles that you really want to live, a lot of times it starts with getting rid of some or all of this debt that we have, right? And I know a lot of times we may feel like, you know, I'm going to just file for bankruptcy and start fresh, wipe the slate clean. But a lot of times bankruptcy does not fix those money habits and those money behaviors that put us in the big debt hole in the first place. Yes, sometimes things happen in our lives that were unexpected or things that were outside of our control that put us into getting a lot of debt. But a lot of times we're in debt because of our own decisions and the own choices that we've made in our lives. But that's okay, because you know what? You can make new choices. You can make new, better decisions to get out of debt and to stay out of debt. Debt that's holding you back and stressing you out and not allowing you to earn more income so you can really be free the way you really want, right? And when it comes to bankruptcy, if you are someone who are considering filing for bankruptcy, think about this. You first have to be eligible for bankruptcy. Then the debts that you want to be included in bankruptcy has to be bankruptable. They have to be eligible because everything is not allowed to be in bankruptcy. And then you have to pay for it. Bankruptcy process is not free. You have to pay for it. And sometimes it's hundreds or thousands of dollars. So you have to think about how much debt do you really have? And is it worth going through that process? So if you're on the edge and you're not really sure, you're kind of torn if you should file for bankruptcy or not, the best thing you can do is to assess your own situation and consult with an experienced bankruptcy attorney that can really give you all of your options so that you can make the best decision for you. But let's go straight into paying off this debt because we want to make sure we borrowed this money, so we need to pay it off. We need to be an adult, be responsible, and get organized and see how can I pay off this debt so I can be more financially free, right? So the first thing is believing that you can do it. I really go hard on this mindset piece because the way we feel about ourselves internally really controls the things that we do on the outside. So think about this. If there's something that you've been wanting to do and you really haven't made any progress, think about how you feel about yourself, how you think about yourself, the words that you speak every single day. You have to think about this debt, and you know what? I don't care how much debt I have. I can pay it off, and it's not going to be until I'm, 30 years later. It's not going to be until I'm 90 years old and I still have debt. No, you're going to be able to pay it off in a year, in 2 years, in 5 years, 6 years, 8 years. Whatever goal you have set for yourself, you can do it. It's just a matter of, what do you plan to sacrifice to get there? What actions are you willing to take? What are you willing to do to get it done? There's so many stories about people paying off debt in different amounts of time. Some of it can feel or seem unrealistic, and some can't. But you have to understand, everyone has their own journey. Just because someone paid off something in a year doesn't mean you can. But it also doesn't mean that you can't either. It just depends on your lifestyle, what's going on with you, what you're really trying to do. Everyone's household and lifestyle is different. But it all starts with that one thing, is believing that you can pay it off, believing that you're capable, believing that you're going to be open to receiving new information and new ways of paying off debt, so you can find out what works for you. There's so many ways to pay off debt, right? But you have to try different things to see what really works for you. So believing that you can, and start taking that action. Nobody's going to do it for you. If it was that easy, I think we all would be out of debt, right? But it's going to take real work, and you don't have to be afraid of it. You can actually do it. So next is the debt snowball method. There's so many other methods out there, but the debt snowball method is a popular one because it works. So with the debt snowball method, you take all of your debts, list them out in order from smallest to largest, and you start paying off with the smallest debt first. One of the reasons is you want to get some quick wins early on to get you pumped up and stay motivated. When you pay off that first debt, you feel motivated to pay off the next debt. When I first started paying off debt and I listed all of my debts from smallest to largest, the smallest debt I had, it really annoyed me because I was like, why is it even on here in the first place? But the first one I had was $50, and it was a Blockbuster fee. This is around the time where Blockbuster had already shut down and closed, but I guess they were sending people to collections who still had like late fees or didn't return a movie fee or something like that. So when I saw this $50 on my credit report, I was so upset. I was like, Blockbuster, how dare you? How dare you put $50 on my credit? Like, I don't even remember getting any notices or anything like that. And once they closed, I really just forgot about it. But it was a fee that I incurred, so I paid it off, of course. So I paid it off, got rid of it, but it did make me feel empowered. It did make me feel like, wow, I just settled a debt. I just got rid of a debt, and now I can actually move on to the next debt. That just made me feel so empowered, and I was just so excited to start paying off debt even more. And I just moved on to the next one, and I moved on to the next one, and moved on to the next one. And that's what you can do too. So line up those debts. Now, there are some cases where you may line up your debts from smallest to largest, and there may be some debts that may be more important than the others, regardless of the interest rate, regardless of the amount that's owed. For example, if you owe the IRS or you're behind in taxes, you should move the IRS to the front of the line. I don't care how much you owe, because that is something that you just do not want to be behind on or in some trouble with, the IRS, because they're going to take it regardless. If you don't ignore them, pay them or set up some type of payment arrangement. Even if you're on a payment plan, it's best to still try to pay them off as soon as possible. Because if you don't and you start ignoring them, they're going to jump in your bank accounts and take it anyway. Or they're going to come to your home and take your assets and get the money that way. So it's best to put that at the front of the line. If you have child support and you're behind on child support, that needs to be at the front of the line, because you know why? It's for the child, first of all. And second of all, you don't want that lingering out there, because depending on what industry you're in or what opportunities you're trying to get, sometimes that child support debt can be a barrier into things that you're trying to do. Even when it comes to certain settlement checks or winnings, they'll ask you, do you owe any child support debt or any other types of debt? And sometimes you'll receive money that won't really come to you first. It'll have to go towards a child support debt. So that's why it's just best to take your debts one by one and get rid of them, because when you're trying to do something or receive something, that debt is going to pop up and stand in the way. So it's best just to find a way to get rid of it, okay? The next one is budgeting. Yes, you're wondering how budget is going to help me pay off my debt? Well, you have to get organized with your money. You have to understand how much money you have coming in and what your expenses are, so you can figure out how much money can I put towards paying off debt every month. And budgeting is really going to help you track your expenses and see if there's some areas that you can cut back on temporarily to allow more money to go back to debt. And I know it can be very difficult to cut back on expenses, but try it out and see how it works for you. Now, you may not want to cut back on expenses, and that's okay too, but you really have to budget, track your expenses, organize your money, see how your cash flow is being handled, so you can figure out when and how can I pay off debt every single month, so you can track it over a period of time. Getting organized is going to help you with your plan. Now, you have to have some room for flexibility, because sometimes things just pop up out of nowhere, right? And you want to be able to manage it. And you can manage things better the more organized you are. No plan is perfect. You can plan the perfect budget, but it may not go as planned. But if you're checking in with yourself every single week, having those money dates, those money meetings, it'll be a lot easier for you to adjust and make changes as needed when you already kind of know what you're working with every month. The next thing is increasing your income. So there are a lot of people out there that are like, you know what? I want to pay off this debt, but I'm not really interested in cutting back anywhere. So I'm just going to focus on increasing my income. And that's a great idea as well. So you're going to have to figure out, okay, if I just have a full-time job, how can I get a raise? How can I get a bonus? How can I work more hours? Or if you have a part-time job, how can I work more hours to get more money? Or you may want to decide, hey, I think I want to get me a second job or a third job, a side hustle, or maybe start my own business, full-time or part-time. Whatever that is, do it. And start thinking about your skills. You know, we're all paying for all kinds of services and products. There is someone out there that would pay you for your skills. We are already paying for so many different things, and the world is just waiting on you to step up, show out, show us what you're working with so we can pay you what you're worth. And a lot of us are sleeping on our skills. We're not saying that you have to do this skill and make money from it forever, but if you're someone that wants to do it forever, then great. But if you're not, and you just want to do something temporarily just to bring in some extra money to pay off this debt, then go ahead and do that. Just figure out, what do you like to do? What do people ask you to do all the time? What questions do people ask you? What skills do you have that come easily and you don't really have to do it, like put in a whole lot of effort for it? Or what are some things that you can do to create up front that can allow you to make passive income, where you're not having to physically be there or physically do something every single time to receive money? That's one of the golden ways to financial freedom, is finding ways to make the passive income, because we only have a certain number of hours in a day and in a week, right? So you want to make sure you're not only making money for things that you have to do physically, but also thinking about ways you can do something on the front end that will allow you to bring in more money, bring in more cash flow while you're sleeping, or while you're not actually having to be present or do anything at all, or do very little work. There's a lot of ways to do that too. So you got to get creative. You got to start taking action on finding ways how you can increase your income. All right. And the next thing is, which is the last one, is getting comfortable with saying no. I know it's hard. I know it's hard, but you got to get comfortable with telling people no. Now, if you have been in debt or struggling with money for the last 5 years, for the last 10 years, for the last 20 years, if you've been in debt or struggling that long, you can get aggressive and get focused for the next year or two. Even if you don't pay off all your debt within the next year or two, just imagine if you just get focused and get aggressive for the next year or two. Just think of how much further along you could be in your finances. If you can struggle for the last 10 years, what is 1 year or two to get focused and know how to say no? You got to know when it's time to say no and when it's time to say yes. But there are going to be things you're going to have to say no to. For example, you may not be able to go to every event, every birthday, every baby shower, gender reveal, every I just want to take a trip for no reason type of trips. You may not be able to buy this and buy that. You know, there's a lot of things that people may ask of you that require money. You may not be able to do it. And it's not just money either. Sometimes it's time. You may have the money to do certain things, but maybe you just don't have the time because you need that time to put into working on paying off this debt. You may not be available to everyone as much as you would like to be, but it's just temporary. So when people are requiring you to do certain things or pay for certain things, know when to say no. You know, you have to put yourself and your dreams and your goals first. And when you're asked to do something or pay for something, ask yourself, is this pushing me closer to or further away from my debt-free goal? Is this going to help me feel good or be happy as I'm paying off debt? Because you can still pay off debt and still enjoy life and have a good time. But you got to be honest with yourself and know that you won't be able to do everything or pay for all these different things like you usually would, because you need that money to put towards debt, or you need that time to work on things that's going to produce more income to pay off debt. So be comfortable with saying no. It's okay. You don't have to always do all these things. I know sometimes we feel obligated to say yes. Yes, I can do it. Yes, I can lend you this money. Or yes, I can pay for this. No, I can't pay for that because it's not in alignment with my debt payoff plan. No, I can't go to this trip out of the country because I'm focusing on paying off my debt right now, and this is going to be a sacrifice that I'm willing to take. Now, am I saying never go on any trips? I'm not. But you have to think about this. You know, if you're trying to pay off debt, it's going to be difficult to do that, and you're still trying to go to everybody's event, go to all the trips, travel every other month. It's just not going to work. But think about this. It's just temporary. Take the next year or two getting hardcore focused on paying off this debt and elevating your financial lifestyle. And when you get overwhelmed, stressed, and you feel like you want to quit, just think about your why and think about your goal. Like, why do you want to pay off debt? What are you going to do after you get out of debt? What are your plans? What do you feel this debt is holding you back on? Think about that. You got to think about the end goal. You have to make those sacrifices. If we can be in debt and struggle for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, what is 1 or 2 years of focus, of making this a priority, okay? So if you have more questions about debt, how to pay off debt, have certain resources you want to have, or if there's anyone out there that want to share some tips for everyone else, you know, this is about community. We can learn from each other. You can send me an email at hello@cleoyogafinance.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review, or you can share on social media and tag Cleo Yoga Finance. And this is the end of the show. But before I go, I want to encourage you to do your best every single day. And don't wonder what if, take a risk and have a productive week.
You can be financially free with Cleo.